Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Hoss Talks Foss. I'm the Hoss, Matt Yonkovit, and we are here to talk to Jean and Vinnie about their time here at Percona, about upcoming Percona Live talks, about all things MongoDB, all things MySQL, and everything in between. Hello, Jean and Vinnie. How are you two?
Hey Matt.
I'm fine. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to talk at the same time, but I will direct traffic today. That's okay. Let me start with Jean. Jean, why don't you introduce yourself? Where are you speaking to us from?
Uh, Hello, everyone. My name is Jim. I'm from São Paulo, Brazil. I'm a support engineer here at Percona for 2 years long. And yeah, for me, it's thank you for this for inviting me in this podcast. So I hope the audience also enjoy it.
And Gene, how did you get started in the database space?
Uh, yeah, I mean, here in Brazil, I did the university for a database, so I started to work with that from the university, and then I started with as an intern, and then going to I moved it on my previous company as a DBA, and then I also had this opportunity here at Percona. So I think it's 3-4 years working this area. I mean, compared to you guys, it's small. So yeah,
Oh,
it's my journey on the
don't feel bad.
database.
When you're this old, you forget everything, and like now you're probably have more knowledge than I do. That's okay. Vinny, you've been on this show a dozen and a half times, probably like 18
Yeah,
times, 20 times, right? You're an old
yeah,
hat at this. But Vinny, where are you located? And maybe give everybody your little background, your 2 seconds worth of fame.
yeah. Oh well, first, it's a nice way that Jean told that we are old, so we have a lot of experience. But yeah, I'm working at Percona for 5 years already, and it's still counting. I'm super happy with that. And currently, I'm in Brazil. Uh, for those who doesn't know, I was born here in Brazil. And I have lived in Europe for a while. But well, because of COVID, things changed a bit, and I'm back at my homeland for now. But already planning the next adventure, so we will see.
All right. So next time, if I come to Brazil, what are you guys going to have me do? Let's start there. Like, what is the must thing to do in Brazil for me when I go there?
uh, I think we can go with to eat a feijoada. It's a good start here in Brazil, so it's very Brazilian dish. So it's a flavor. Yeah, it's a tasty food for us here. I mean, it's heavy. I mean, in terms of, but it's a very good. And then we eat feijoada with caipirinha, which is a very good combo. So yeah, it's a good start.
Vinny, do you concur with this, or is there some other thing activities that that I should do? Like it's I must do this.
Well, I fully support Jean's idea. Also, for
They're
those who love,
laughing, so I'm a little worried.
no, no,
Uh,
no, 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 no.
No, 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 no.
No, I'm not mentioning the parties and all the hard stuff in Brazil. I'm just talking about food. Like for those who love meat, being a churrascaria here in Brazil to eat some traditional Brazilian meats, people loves it the way it works here. So yeah, I think it's the two things you need to do here. It's eat and drink.
Eat and drink. Okay.
Yeah,
It sounds like a fun place. It's almost like Uruguay, right? Like
yeah,
that seems to,
exactly.
yeah. Yeah, you both smile and nod at the exact same time.
Yeah,
There you go. Our friendly neighborhood Uruguayans approve as well.
yeah.
So that's awesome. So both of you have been at Percona for a little while. Now, Vinny, your background and your experience is a little different than Gene's. Gene, you're mainly focused on Mongo, is that right?
No, no. I also help with MySQL,
Okay, great.
but on the daily routine, I usually take more Mongo issues. But yes, I also help the team with MySQL
And
cases.
Vinny, you have kind of flipped back and forth between databases, left, right, and sideways. You've written a book on MySQL. You've really gotten into the depths of MongoDB as well. So you kind of know both sides of the coin there.
Yes, and if you guys are interested in to know my favorite database, you will have to ask me in Austin at Percona Live. But yeah.
Oh, no, no, no. We're going to ask you on this during our rapid fire question session. I just invented it an
Okay.
hour ago, where I ask you random questions and we see what your answers are. So
Okay.
that's going on there. So
We'll
you
try
have
my
about
best.
10 minutes or so to figure that one out. And
Yeah.
you're going to answer Postgres, right? Um,
True.
see, or yes, yes. I think every time you say Postgres, an angel gets his wings. So just
Yeah, well, people
be
love
mindful.
Postgres, so yeah, it's true. No, but truth to be told, like I really enjoy MySQL and MongoDB. They both have. I don't have experience with Postgres, but from what I see and what I heard, it's a very good database as well. Uh, I think the best database you can work with is the one that you know the best. So it doesn't matter much if you work with a database that you don't have experience. So you won't extract 100% of the performance.
So, what sort of apps are you seeing being used for MySQL and Mongo? Where does that line fall with your support activities? When people call you, are you seeing more, web apps, mobile apps? Like where do you kind of see the trends going?
For MySQL, what I have been seeing, for example, uh, a lot of customers works in a similar way as WordPress. Which means is that each user has a schema inside the database and its own tables. So it's kind of like you have several customers working on the same database, probably with same schema or slightly different. Mobile apps, gaming. We have a few gaming customers as well. They use MySQL as a platform for their production when the game is online and the players will play. So the application is many in various.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we can see a bit in the Mongo universe is regarding about the database size. Usually, I don't see something like similar in MySQL. Of course, there is a lot of environments that we work, but usually our Mongo's customer they have a huge replica set or even clusters. So I think they are going more with big data things.
Mm.
So, but yeah,
Define big in this context because everybody has a slightly different version of big data. What does that look like for you?
For me, when I see a replica set with, I don't know, more than 10 terabytes of data, it's huge for me. And then if you split that on a sharded cluster, it will be more easy to administrate. But also, in my perspective, more than 10 terabytes of data in a database is too much sometimes. So yeah, that's my perception on big things.
Hmm. Vinny, what do you have a limit? Is Gene wrong or right?
No, he's right, and like even for MySQL, like huge databases are terrible to manage because backups, restart times, DDLs are very difficult to operate. It takes a long time, require a lot of planning. Usually in support, we have kind of an internal rule. We don't say much, but it's if your database is growing above 2 terabytes in a server, you should consider or purging or sharding or something like that because it's a good limit where SSDs can perform relatively fast and this stuff.
Yeah, all kinds of operational issues become a challenge at scale. I mean, even with the Mongo, which has built-in sharding and a lot of features for more of a cluster, which isn't something baked in necessarily to the MySQL ecosystem. You do have issues. One of the classic issues is how do you back up such a large monstrosity of a database? Like if you've got 8, 10 shards, terabytes each, how do you back that up?
Yeah, honestly, I think we are good in MySQL because MySQL has a lot of community tools for help to help you to deal with
Mhm.
backups. But then when you go to the Mongo world, it's quite a problem because we only rely. I mean, if we are talking about the open source solution, so if we talk about only the open source, we have the Mongo dump, Mongo import, and then the Percona solution, which is PBM. So to manage this kind of huge data set, it's problematic. So then I see the tools for MySQL, and that's something I really like because you have extra backup, you have MySQL pump, MySQL dump, you have a lot of possibilities to, of course, you start to be limited because of your database. It's huge, but I mean, you have options at least. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, so you actually both of you have a talk on PBM coming up at Percona Live, or depending on when this podcast is released, maybe after or you did. Like it might, I don't know. It could be before or after. We do record and then release once or twice a week, depending on where this is in the queue. But we'll just assume it's coming up, and if it's not, you can make it coming up by just going to YouTube and searching for it. So from a PBM perspective, are you going to talk to us about how PBM helps back up those larger systems?
Yes, we are going to present two types of the backups that PBM is bringing to the open source environment, which will help hugely the community. For those who doesn't want to stick with Atlas, which is the uh, enterprise and paid version of Bongo Inc., which provides a set of features, but everything has a price. We will show examples on how to do backups of these large data sets. And the great thing about PBM is that besides being open source, like it expands your possibilities. Like if you want to save your backup in Amazon S3, Google Cloud, Azure, it has native support. So you can integrate easily with your cloud environment.
So, here's an interesting question. Gene, you mentioned all of the fantastic community tools in the MySQL space. Why aren't those tools in the Mongo space?
That's a question I ask myself since I start to work with Mongo.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's something unclear for me. I have some friends that work with Mongo, and I don't know. I don't know if it's something because of the approach. Honestly, I don't know. MySQL uh, started as an open source and still open source, even though it's from Oracle. But the root, the nature of MySQL, it's open source. Mongo, since its beginning, it's open source, but has this path to the enterprise way. So I don't know honestly why we don't have such approach in MongoDB universe, which is unfortunately not good for the
I
users.
wonder if it's because the focus in Mongo tends to be with development teams and focus on the development features and less on the administration. So they try to hide some of that. I mean, I know from my personal experience when I was a youngster, dinosaurs roamed the earth, and I had to, like survive against velociraptors trying to eat me and stuff, and was a DB at the same time, long ago. Uh, it was the pain that made me solve some of these issues, right? So you would develop a tool. Most of Toolkit, for instance, was developed because we needed it to do our jobs, right? Like, oh, we're missing this thing. We need to go do it. And extra backup, for instance, was originally a paid for feature by Innobase, who ended up getting bought by Oracle. And then it was brought to the open source space by Percona. But it was that pain where you have something you need to do, you can't do it, and you move on. I wonder, are the users and the people who are responsible now for Mongo instances more developer architect focused and less infrastructure focused? I mean, is that part of the reason?
I would say so. We see, and that's the good and bad thing. Like, Mongo has, I don't know, 12, 15 years of age. It's a relatively new database. So and it has a really specific use. And we see like developers using it in a constant way to make, because it's schemaless, so you can store everything. It makes your development much faster, but also brings problems. And this lack of maturity, I think it's the big problem with the people that are using it and with the tool, with the database itself.
Now, Jean laughed. He couldn't help
Mm,
himself.
no, this is my normal way. Just yeah.
No,
I
no,
mean,
no.
uh,
When he said schemaless, you had a grin that was ear to ear. So, would you like to clarify?
no, I mean that's the way that Vinny described it's perfect. I mean the things needs to be faster and the schemaless, the way that you don't need to get relations between the structure, it's easier to deal with. So yeah, I mean let's work on the problem, then let's let the let's let the database on the side. So I don't know. That's
Oh,
would
wait a
be
minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. And so this is why I thought you were grinning. And I was going to pick up on this, which is I hear the term schemaless and I laugh myself because I don't think that MongoDB is truly schemaless. I think that you actually do need some sort of schema or at least schema validation, and you need to validate the data that's in there. Otherwise, performance issues happen as soon as you start getting to scale. Am I right?
you are correct.
I am correct. Yes. Ring
Yeah.
the bell, everyone. Ring the bell. I am correct. I love it when I'm right. We should just stop now. We should do a microphone drop right now, and because I'm right, and I like to end it. I know. No, um, but no. I mean, I think that it's interesting. There's a lot of databases nowadays that come out and they try to um, throw away the shackles of SQL or throw away the shackles of data validation. And realistically, I think the power and benefit of many of these, including Mongo itself, is the ability to add and remove data as needed, yes, and not have to worry about the overhead of managing those objects. But that schema validation still has to happen somewhere. If you're not doing it in the database, you're still doing it in code. And if you're not doing it either place, you're setting yourself up for a big problem. But even so, even if you're doing it in code, aren't you going to run into index issues, performance issues potentially if you're just kind of throwing anything that you want into the database?
Yes, I like to say you can't treat your database as your garbage, where you can put everything without any order. And yes, like that's what we face in support, a lot of these issues, because things run faster when database is quite small, but the schema less without proper organization, it becomes a problem. And Mongo grows the data much faster than MySQL, right? Because we store usually people use to store much more things, so it can become a problem really quickly. And as you said, Matt, I like to say like it is better to build the plane in the ground. Let's not try to make improvements while he's flying. So that's what we need to do with MongoDB.
It's a good point. Yeah, it's always more difficult to go back and change the architecture, right? Um, although a lot of times you do have to figure out how to make that plane stay in the air. Um, yeah, which is what DBAs and data professionals and SREs are doing, right? We're trying to make that plane stay in the air as much as possible. Very important there. Now, um, as the databases, specifically Mongo, but also others, they evolve. They add more and more features between every version. Mongo, for instance, it didn't used to have transactions. Now it does, right? I mean, big changes in some cases where you go through massive architectural changes between different versions of databases. Sometimes that leads to performance improvements. Other times it leads to degradations. Now, I told Gene that I was going to do this. It was we appear to have a snafu on the Percona live schedule because Gene submitted an awesome topic about the performance difference between different versions of Mongo, and for somehow it missed the final schedule. And I got to go figure that out. I'm gonna do that right after this podcast. I promised him.
Okay. Okay.
But here's the thing. I'm curious. What do you see between those different versions? Are you seeing that we're seeing linear performance improvements, or are we seeing degradations?
Um, we see some degradation, but again, there's a lack of documentation about that. There's a lack of blog posts and research on this thing. So since Mongo, I mean our life in support, we have a plenty of customers that does an upgrade and then come to us, hey, I did an upgrade and why it's getting slow. So we see because there are some new features like the transactions didn't exist some time ago, and there is a lot of validation that Mongo also start to do in the new versions that doesn't happen before. But again, we're still lacking this kind of resource, this kind of analysis, and we see that we see this loss of performance, but we can't say in terms of numbers how much is that. We know that's something around 10 15%
Wow.
of I mean, comparing Mongo 3.6 to 4.0, and then um, it's got smaller between 4.2 and then 4.4, but still performance degradation. But again, we don't have these numbers. And the talk that I submitted was to give some numbers to the audience, to the public, and say, okay, there is a loss or not. Maybe I'm just
Well, so here's
dreaming
the
about
thing. I'm a
that, you know?
stickler for benchmarks. I like benchmarks. I love data. I love to see things. So we are going to have that one way or another. It might not be at Percona Live. I might have to get you on a live stream, and we might just do it. In fact, we should
Okay.
do it live. We should benchmark these things. We should make them cry. We should see where they break. I love doing that. I love playing Stump the Expert live. So if you want to come on and play Stump the Expert, and we'll blow up some Mongo instances. I love blowing up MySQL and Postgres. I'm an equal database destroyer. Okay, I am not.
That's good. That's good.
I'm not trying to be fanboy of one over the other, but we can do that. Now, we're going to start something that I started literally 2 hours ago. I recorded another podcast earlier today, and found that when I have multiple guests, it's often interesting to ask them the same question and see if they have any responses and see if they'll argue about it. So we're going to go round table as quick as we can, and we're going to see if you two agree with one another, and we're going to see, like what sort of things, are in sync, and maybe get some different opinions. So, are we ready?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Gene, what's your favorite open source
Yes.
tool?
Favorite open source tool?
Yes.
Oh, PMM.
PMM. Okay. Vinny,
Yes.
favorite open source tool?
Percona Toolkit.
Percona Toolkit. Okay. Vinny, favorite MongoDB command?
Drop database.
Oh, that's one you don't run very often.
Yeah.
Gene, favorite MongoDB database command?
Explain.
Explain.
Dot
Okay.
explain.
Okay. Gene, favorite Linux distro?
Yeah. CentOS.
Does that even exist anymore?
I mean,
Does it?
you know,
Okay.
I'm a young guy,
Vinny,
but still, yeah.
your favorite distribution?
I will stick with CentOS 7.
Oh my gosh, you guys are
Yeah.
killing me because it doesn't exist anymore. Okay,
it's still
fine.
supported, but yeah, because we
I had
have
Marcos on a
internal
live.
joke.
I had Marcos on a live stream a week ago, and he's giving me crap about why I would choose Ubuntu, and I'm like, he's like, use CentOS, and I'm like, it doesn't exist. I can't. I give him a Rocky Linux, so he's building everything with Rocky right now. But it's one of those things. But okay, so you're both CentOS fans, which
Yeah.
I assume will just be because it's free Red Hat.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
we'll just leave it at that. It was free Red Hat, right? That's what it was. Okay. So, largest database you've ever worked on, Vinny?
For MySQL, 15 terabyte database on a single instance with no replication, no backups.
No backups.
No.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
It was wild.
What was the application? What kind of application was it?
I don't recall. I think it was a monolith running for years in the company. The machine was monstrous with 128 cores, 1 terabyte of memory. Like it was huge. It was really a colossus. It was crazy. Yeah.
Okay, Jean, biggest database you've worked with?
Uh, Mongo, I would say I worked with a 10 shards sharded cluster with no backup as well because there is no backup solution for that.
Oh, about
So
how much total
yeah,
disk space was that?
I would say it's 5 terabytes, not that much,
Okay.
but I mean it's still 10 shards
Vinnie wins 3x the
to administrate.
size.
Yeah.
Okay, so Gene, what is the worst problem that you see customers, companies, users make over and over again in the database?
Over and over. Uh, I think it's the way. Uh, Again, I see it often in our daily routine. So when you go to shard, they just go and shard by random keys, and that's not the way it works. And then it comes to us, hey, it's not working. And then we saw, okay, your key is not working for this. So how we do that? I mean, in the previous version for Mongo, there's no way to fix that. I mean, you have to dump and import again.
Okay,
So that's the problem. Yeah,
Vinny.
that's the big for me.
I think it's pretty much what Jean said. Like not only for Mongo but also for MySQL, you have badly structured data. So you have a table with 100 varchar fields with 1,000 characters and like 100 index, and people are complaining because why my writes are slow and why it's so hard my life. Like it's bad design,
Okay,
definitely.
Bad sign.
okay. Um, I don't know if I should ask this, but I will. Worst outage you've seen? Doesn't have to be something you've done at Percona or seen at Percona or a customer. It could be anywhere. Worst outage that you've seen, or worst, you know, company crippling event.
Okay, yeah, that is
Vinny,
tough.
you are the experienced one.
No,
So
well, I had a case where I worked with Mongo, like production systems. You don't have only one server. You work at least with three. And this guy, he was running his production on only a single server. The disk crashed, and the database got corrupted. We had to run like two tools that goes really into the physical files to extract the data. The guy was offline for days because there were no other options, and like we could recover 60-70% maximum of the data. So like Mongo was not consistent before, and after was even worse. So that was my crazy story.
Gene?
yeah, for me, it's funny because it was on Oracle database doing our
Mm.
upgrade, and I mean we had to open a bug, or I mean we have to escalate the issue for the Oracle support, and you had the system down for a while the guys work on that. So was doing upgrade on Oracle.
My worst that I've ever seen is someone did a data center failover, forgot to set up backups, then someone dropped the database. Did that drop
Mm.
your favorite command there, Vinny? Drop database.
Yeah.
And didn't have any backups because they hadn't run backups for 3 months.
Oh,
Um,
jeez.
yeah. Forensic data recovery took over a week, and the company went out of business within 6 months.
Yeah, yeah. It's business ending. Such things. It's crazy.
Indeed. So I warned Vinny I was going to do this. Vinny, what is your favorite version of MongoDB? I see. I changed it up. I thought I was
Yeah,
going
yeah. I
to
was
ask him to choose
expecting
between
worse.
Mongo and MySQL, but
Yeah.
I didn't. I said favorite version of MongoDB. Like what version do you think was like? Wow, this one was great.
I think it was 3.6. 3.6 had a lot of improvements compared to previous versions. White, the White Tiger engine was gaining traction and becoming more and more mature. Also, on the sharding aspect, Mongo brought a lot of improvements. It was more stable, less problematic. So it's already reached its end of life, but I think it was the big one, the 3.6.
And Jean, what about you?
Mongo, MySQL.
What either one. I'll let you choose either one. I made Vinny choose just Mongo, but you can choose either.
uh, I'll go with Vinnie and Mongo because I mean we share the same pains
Oh,
in here in
oh,
support
see
and
that's I should make you submit your answers ahead of time. Like it could be like how well do you know each other? Like
yeah, and for MySQL, I like the 5.7 version because that is where I started in the university, and then I also is still working to nowadays. So it's a very reliable and
yeah,
such a good
it's
database.
it's it's amazing how the versions and the tools you start with stick with you forever. Right? And even through like new iterations and new features, you're like, yeah, I still like that version. That's where I started.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right, I'm going to ask you one more, and then we're gonna have to end, and we're gonna have to catch up back at Percona Live. So, what do you see is the most interesting thing in the tech space? What are you really excited about? What are you seeing out there, whether it's database related or not? Doesn't even have to be database related. Gene, why don't we start with you? What kind of technologies or things are you really interested in learning about or experimenting with?
I think that's something I learned here in Percona, which is the community support. I mean, I used to work in a private company and work doing things from there. And then when I start to work here at Percona, it's nice to see how the community interacts with the database, with the problems.
Mm.
You know, you go to the Jira and then open. I didn't have that view when I worked in my previous job, so then I joined here and I could see this open source world, which is for me amazing and happy to be part of it. So
Did
yeah.
you answer that because I run community? It's okay if you say yes.
No, no,
Yeah,
no, no, no.
it's
Honestly,
okay if
no,
you say
no,
yes because brownie points do win you drinks at Percona Live.
no, no. Honestly,
Yes,
that's
and you might get a
amazing.
hat out of
Yeah.
this. I mean, just for that, like you might get a hat.
No, no. I'm totally honest here.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. What about you, Vinny? What has you interested? What are you trying to explore, figure out?
Yeah, people is gonna judge me, but
Judge Vinny.
uh, yeah, I would like to learn more about Postgres. It's been a database that has been largely used, and it's been the preference of people that's trying to get out from Oracle and go to open source solution. So it's the first database. Nobody goes to MySQL or Mongo. It's always Postgres, and I think it might have it is a great thing to learn.
Mm. So we're thinking about doing 100 days of Postgres, Vinny. You want to come along on that journey with us?
Well, I can try, but I'm really a junior guy, so you have to teach me from the basics.
Well, the good news is our good buddy Charlie, who also happens to be in Brazil, just so happens, big database community there, is doing a weekly or bi-weekly live stream where we're going to go through every part of managing and setting up and doing everything in Postgres. We're 3 episodes in, actually 4 because Charlie got a little long-winded on the second and we had to do 2 episodes. But there's really 3 episodes. So Vinny, you can come along the journey with me and Charlie as we figure out how to do this, and maybe you can help me stump Charlie once in a while because I've got some workload that I like to throw out there, and he's like, "What the heck is happening?" I like to do that. I like to stump the experts.
Yeah, for sure, it's going to be a pleasure. I know Charlie very well. We worked together before he becoming the PostgreStack lead. So yeah, it will be a pleasure to be with Mr. Batista and Mati Yonkovit.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to thank both of you for coming out. I'm really excited to see you in person. It's going to be fun at Percona Live. I am sure we're going to have lots more conversations. I'm actually doing live podcasts from Percona Live, so you can swing by the podcast booth. We have a podcast booth where you can come in and say hi and get on the air. And you can have our the dozens and dozens of people who like me follow you too.
Cool.
But all right. Well, thanks for coming on. And until next time, we will see you later.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
It was a pleasure.
Thank
All right.
thank
Bye
you.
bye.
See you there. Bye.
Wow, what a great episode that was. We really appreciate you coming and checking it out. We hope that you love open source as much as we do. If you like this video, go ahead and subscribe to us on the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And of course, tune in to next week's episode. We really appreciate you coming and talking open source with us.